Hey guys, what is up? Today we are bringing you part 3 of the What You Need to Know to Improve at Dota 2 series. Today we're talking about making good plays and taking good team fights. So what is a play in general? People use it as a phrase to talk about doing anything, but in this video we will consider it a coordinated attempt among 2 or more teammates to get a kill. If you think about it, a team fight can also be a play, but you can sort of think of it as a gank as well, for the purpose of this video, and then we'll talk specifically about team fights a bit as well. So constructing plays is, first of all, use Smoke of Deceit, obviously, or maybe not obviously, but it makes you invisible. You can get allies in it, and you can go through wards without being seen, and it gives you a move speed boost so that your plays happen faster. What you need to understand about making plays in order to rank up is that whether a play will work or not is going to come down to the hero's kits, and if your heroes have the potential to kill the heroes that you're trying to kill on the enemy team. Like, execution does play a factor, but then there's also, like, just theoretically, do our heroes kill their heroes? So you have to think in terms of those sort of specific examples sometimes before you just go for random plays. So for example, if you're playing around a hero like a Puck and the enemy has a Phantom Lancer, that's a play you can go for because the Puck has the ability to lock down the Phantom Lancer and probably just needs a little bit of damage, and you can get that kill. Versus if you're trying to gank a Phantom Lancer and your mid is a hero without lockdown, like a Pugna cannot gank a PL. Like, that play, like if you try and smoke your Pugna, it doesn't matter really what support you are. That's not completely true, I guess. If you catch the enemy heroes completely off guard, things can still work, but you have to kind of reverse construct what you think the play is going to look like. If you're playing Shadow Shaman, you could smoke your Pugna and go for a kill, right? If you get a good Hex into Shackle, the Pugna will provide the damage. That could be a kill on a slippery but low HP hero like Phantom Lancer. Versus sometimes it will not work at all. If you're a hero like Ancient Apparition and you've got a Pugna, you can't smoke and go try and kill somebody that has an easy way to escape because your heroes just don't lock them down. So most plays need lockdown, some sort of stun or disable, and then damage, right? So if you're ganking with a, if you're, again, choose like Shadow Shaman, a high lockdown hero, if you're ganking with a Shadow Shaman and then like an axe, that's a lot of lockdown, but it's not a ton of damage. So unless the hero that you're killing is really squishy, you might not kill them just because they can walk it off. You don't do enough damage. So that comes down to understanding your hero's role in a play of damage versus disable, versus sometimes having the vision is helpful. Or maybe just carrying dust if they can go invis. That's really important as well. And the next thing you want to consider is if anybody on their team is going to be able to come help. That's a little more advanced, but if you're trying to gank a hero, you want to be aware of your route and if it's near a tower. And if it is near a tower, can you anticipate they're going to come help? Are you going to kill the hero that you're looking for very fast? Is it going to be a quick kill? Or if the kill is going to take like 10 seconds and you're going to have to chase them down a little bit, then are they going to TP in and be able to turn that play around on you? You should also think about this in reverse, as any hero really, but especially on the core roles. What do they need on their team to kill you? What heroes on their team kill you? If you're playing a slippery carry hero like a Faceless Void or a Phantom Lancer, they can really only kill you probably if they bring a strong lockdown hero, right? If they bring heroes that don't lock you down, it's not really going to work and you don't have to be afraid. Versus if they have a hero that's missing, that has a lot of disable, then you might be safer. If they have a low disable team, you might have a really free game. Like if you're a Weaver and their supports are Dazzle and like Pugna, like you just can't die to those supports ever unless you severely misplay, so you don't have to worry about those heroes. Versus their mid Storm Spirit or their mid Puck or something like that, you might need to be a little more worried if those heroes are missing, because those are the heroes on their team that they need to kill you. I want to add in a extra point here that goes with what I was just saying. When sometimes you'll hear people talk about or use the phrase, oh, this is like a free game for this hero, like this is a free PL game or a free Slark game or whatever. That concept of it being a free game for that hero is oftentimes predicated on just, does the enemy have heroes that can walk up to you and kill you or not, right? These slippery heroes like Slark, Phantom Lancer, whatever, if they don't have heroes that gank your hero effectively, that makes it a free game for you because you really don't have to worry about dying unless you're doing something really crazy, right? With your basic map awareness, you'll just never die. Certain heroes, also, there are other things going to making it a free game, right? Like a PL, like they need to have no illusion clear. But that's something to think about when you hear is like, oh, this is going to be a really easy game for X hero. And that can go into drafting as well. That's why supports often pick first, and then cores get the opportunity to counter pick, right? If they have really high disable heroes, you don't want to pick a core that is hard countered by them having lockdown. Like a squishy hero that relies on the lockdown is not that great, versus if they have supports of like a Treant and a Dazzle, you could pick a Weaver because they really have no effective way to lock you down except for Treant ulti, and one Dispel solves that problem, and basically that makes it a free Weaver game. Obviously, cores can then counterpick you, or you could just get unlucky as you're both picking and they could have lockdown with their cores. But in general, that's where that concept really originates, is like, do they have an easy way to kill you or not in the game? Another thing that goes into making good plays and setting them up is being as aware as possible of the map and who's showing on their team and who's not showing, because that is the information you need in order to have a play work or not. If they have a lot of heroes missing, that's generally not a good time to go for a smoke play, because A, you don't know who you're going to find, B, you might run into more heroes than you anticipate. They might be really ready for your play and ready to react and counter it and turn it around, and that would not be smart, right? But if you see that they have a hero in their off lane, and you see a hero on a ward in a jungle, and you see somebody clearing mid, then obviously you have really good information about who you want to go for. So you can take advantage of the enemy splitting up, but you need to have the vision and the information. And something to note is if you have a lane pushed in and nobody's there, that's information that you need to account for. Why is nobody there? Are they grouped somewhere else? The last thing I'll say is that plays can happen really at any time. You can TP to a tower, to a core, or to another support, smoke them, and start a play instantaneously, like within 4 or 5 seconds. Like, you don't have to spend a lot of time setting up these plays. Sometimes it's as quick as pressing smoke and walking in a direction right after something else has already happened. They can happen very fast, and the faster your plays work, the more off guard your opponents are going to be caught out. Because if you think about as you play and you're watching the map, you're looking for threats. If you're checking your map every 10 seconds, and 10 seconds ago you checked it, and everything looked fine, but the enemy smoked immediately after that and walked straight towards you, 10 seconds you check it again, you don't see anything, you're like, huh, and then maybe you just die. Maybe they're already on top of you. So the faster plays work, the faster you'll catch people out who aren't ready to react and who aren't watching their map enough and don't understand if it's safe or not to be where they are. So when is a play good? Obviously, when you have the map information, like I already talked about, the information is really key. You don't have to have perfect information to make a good play, but that is a key component. The second thing is awareness of your teammates' readiness. That'll be cooldowns, item timings, or a lot of times, have they pushed out their lane? A lot of plays happen through the mid heroes because they're the strongest, have the most levels, typically have a lot of gold as well. Is their mid lane pushed out? If you try and smoke your mid quap, but creeps are hitting her tower, whatever you play you go for is not really going to work, because the enemy is all going to see that the creeps are hitting the mid tower, and they're like, well, quap's not there, so he's probably trying to kill somebody, and they're going to play accordingly, and your play is probably not going to work very well. So sometimes you need to wait for your mid to push out a wave and then smoke them and then go do something. Sometimes you need to wait for your core to get their next item. They won't want to make a play if they're really close to their next item, or if they have an important spell on cooldown. If your puck has coil and it's on cooldown, he probably doesn't want to go gank at the moment. The other thing is awareness of the enemy cooldowns. Ganking a Wraith King whose reincarnation is up is probably not a great idea. Ganking a Wraith King who you just killed and who just respawned and who doesn't have reincarnation is a really good idea. So these things also impact when a play is good or not. If you see in this example here below, is this Spectre has his ulti, but he's really close to his Manta, so he probably doesn't really want to join in a big team fight or something right now. Maybe he would participate in a pickoff because Spectre's can do that, but he doesn't have Blade Mail up, and he's really close to his next item, so he probably doesn't want to take a big fight. These are the things that you need to note as a support when you're setting up a play. Are my cores ready to participate? One last thing I wanted to mention about when a play is good. Often good plays are centered around your cores and your carry specifically's item timings. So if your carry finishes an item, that's often a really, really good time to smoke it up as a team and go look for a play, which will be a team fight, or it can be a gank on a specific hero and then turning that into map pressure, objectives, etc. So look for your mid or especially your carry to finish an item and then group up with them. And if you're a support, pay attention, because if you're low MMR, a lot of times your carries will finish an item and then just keep hitting creeps. Try and encourage them. Hey, you just finished this item. I think you're strong. Let's try and fight them. Don't let them continue to jungle, continue to whatever. Try and use these timings to go make plays. So when is it not a good play? Well, obviously when things are on cooldown, teammates aren't ready, etc. If you think a play should be good and then your teammates don't come, that makes it not good. Even if you were right in theory, if they don't join in or they don't agree or whatever, don't force plays because you think they'll work. If your team isn't really going to commit to it, that makes it a bad play. And at a certain point, any good play can become a bad play if for whatever reason you mis-execute, you don't get the kill as fast as you thought, things drag out. That gives the opponent opportunities to turn it. Typically, you're using spells, and if you're not getting initial kills with those spells or abilities, then you're going to be out of spells when the opponent shows up and is able to turn it around on you. So overcommitting, overextending can happen to any good play and make it a bad play, and that's a game sense thing. Do we need to keep going? And a lot of that is, are we near a tower? Are they going to respond to this play? Can they respond to this play? Maybe somebody just TP'd across the map, so you know they can't be there. Versus if you don't have that information, you kind of have to assume that they can respond, and they will, especially as you get better and better. You can't just assume that nobody's going to pay attention and react to what you're doing. So thinking about team fights, moving on from plays to team fights. So sometimes team fights need to be played a certain way. So based on the lineups of each team, they'll want different ways to take team fights. Sometimes you want to take a longer team fight. Your team does less burst damage, but more damage over time, and you're kind of tankier. Maybe you have high regen, maybe you have a lot of healing, so you don't really mind team fights to drag out. You'll get more out of your spells that way. And sometimes you want them to be really short. You want to burst heroes fast, and if you don't, the fight's not going to go well for you because you've got big spells, and if you don't get a payoff with those big spells, then you're kind of out of luck. So the key to this is assessing your own damage type output and the enemy damage type output. So if they have a lot of magic damage, if they have a lot of physical damage, if they have a lot of, maybe pure damage, and then do they have bursty heroes, or do they have more damage over time, healing, sustain type heroes? Enemy damage type output is also important in thinking about items, right? You don't really need a Glimmer or a Pipe if they have a Slardar and a TA. Vice versa, you don't really need armor items if they've got Pugna, Leshrac, and some offlane Sand King, right? It's just not going to be necessary to have any armor items. You want to go full on magic resist or spell counter or something like that. You also want to assess your own damage type output for your team, especially in terms of thinking about itemization for supports, right? If you buy drums for your team, but you're mostly magic damage, that's not going to be that useful. Versus if you have a lot of physical damage, drums or Vlads, things like that can be really good. It also tells you what sort of defensive items you need when you think about the other team. Do you need a Pavis for the Fizz resist barrier, or do you need a Glimmer for magic resist barrier? Things like that. Or do they just have maybe some stuns or some roots, and you need a Force Staff to help your team get away from that? And then you want to assess your own hero's role in the team fights. What is your job? Are you a disabler? Do you need to start the fight for your team? Do you need to wait for the fight to start before you do anything? Is there a specific hero on their team that you need to be going on or worrying about? These are all things you have to think about for team fights. So just to give some more specific examples here, is there a key support hero that you need to kill first, like a Dazzle or an Oracle? If you go on the cores when these heroes are in the game as supports, they're just going to save their core, and then all of your damage and effort is probably going to be wasted. So a lot of times you need to find and kill these heroes first, or the fight is not going to go well for you. They make you play a particular way, otherwise they're going to be an advantage in a fight that just happens randomly and probably not going on them. Sometimes there's particular heroes you need to kill before they get a key spell off, or things get really hard. Brewmaster ulti, Phoenix Egg, things like that. So if you can kill those heroes before they get those off, that's really important. Maybe you need a specific item to silence them so that you can kill them before you get them off if your team doesn't have a silence. These are kind of things you need to think about. And these all works for ganks too. I'm talking about team fights now, but it works for ganks as well. If you're trying to gank a Brewmaster, it's the same concept, right? You need to kill him before he gets a split off. Otherwise, you wasted your time. And maybe they'll turn it with brew split, something like that. Sometimes there's a big spell on the enemy team that you need to try and get them to use, but you need to be aware that they have it and are going to use it, and then be ready to basically kite it out. Try and bait that spell out, and then pull back, wait for the effect to be over, and then go again. So like Dawnbreaker Ultimate, Global Silence, Brew Split again, a Death Prophet Exorcism, a Batten ulti. If you can get these heroes to trigger their spells and then fully disengage, it's really, really good. And those heroes are going to be really weak for the next, minute, 2 minutes, whatever, however long the cooldown of their spell is. Do they have heroes on their team that you need to play to counter? So, these are considered cheese heroes a lot of times as well, but the fact is that these heroes being in the game requires you to play a particular way, otherwise they're just going to steamroll you. So a Tinker, a Meepo, a Huskar, all these heroes sort of require you to address them in a particular way. You could also, and there are other heroes, Broodmother is another one, not as bad as it used to be, but still notable, right? If you're not thinking about how you need to engage those specific types of heroes, then you're probably going to lose the game, because they're going to take over if you're not playing to those heroes' weaknesses and trying to take advantage of those heroes' weaknesses and making sure that you're not playing into their strengths. And sometimes there's heroes where you should not take a team fight at all unless you see those heroes. So that can often be the key supports, especially as the game goes later. Or a hero like a sniper. Maybe they don't have a save support, but they've got a sniper that's kind of owning your team. Well, you probably just should stop avoiding, or you should start avoiding all fights unless you see the sniper. It becomes about vision and making sure that you can focus the right hero, and making sure you don't fight just because you see a different opportunity that you think is opportunity somewhere else. So I'm going to wrap up here. We're just talking about like win condition critical heroes. These are a lot of the ones I just talked about, but you'll sometimes hear people say like, oh, there's like a win condition, or like, this is our win condition. Maybe you haven't heard it, but a win condition hero, and it doesn't have to be a hero really, but it's like what a team needs in order to win the game. And sometimes this will be an item. It's like, oh, if I get this item, then we can counter this hero, or we can do this, and then we'll win that way. Certain heroes are win condition heroes in and of themselves, or just critical heroes where if you don't take care of them, they're probably going to run over you. So you have to have a game plan for how you're going to address these types of heroes. So making sure that you understand if they have any of these and then playing accordingly, or if you have one on your team, trying to enable them and play according to how that hero should be played on your side. If it's a sniper, you have to protect him at all costs, or vice versa on the enemy, you have to find him and kill him at all costs, right? If it's an alchemist, you want to kind of slow him down early. You need to be aware that he's going to have a lot of items, and you need to react with a lot of heroes when he starts to get active, or otherwise he's going to steamroll you. I don't want to go on about every hero here, but these are the types of things you need to have in mind in terms of lineup when you want to gain rank against, you need to have this understanding so that you can gain rank against these heroes. You can't just always be losing to these types of heroes. So you have to use your brain and think about it. Do they have these heroes? How do we need to react? So that is the end of the video, guys. Hopefully you found this helpful. I couldn't get into too many specifics because I didn't want it to be too long, but let me know if you have any specific questions about heroes or whatever. Thanks for checking it out. Leave a comment down below if there's another type of video you want to see in this series. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, sub to the channel. And if you want to be coached by me, check the link in the video description. You can join my Discord there, and there's all the information there on how to sign up.